election outcome. And they also plan to say, we have no evidence of cyber manipulation of election infrastructure intended to alter results. Here's the bottom line. What people need to know is Obama's intel community was about to give Obama a presidential daily brief that totally dismissed, downplayed, poo-pooed, choose your word, the notion that Russia had meaningfully interfered in the 2016 presidential election.
Fox News alert, the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, releasing a bombshell report today that shows a conspiracy by a sitting president, Barack Obama, and his intel agencies to sabotage the president-elect, Donald Trump, brainwash the electorate, and undermine the legitimacy.
He once stood as a beacon of hope, but now, behind the polished speeches and carefully crafted spotlight, something darker begins to emerge. As Megyn Kelly and Jesse Waters investigate further, the perfect image starts to crumble from within. The Netflix glamour fades, the podcast wisdom falls flat, and the contradictions shout louder than the applause ever did. This isn't just a roast, it's a reckoning. The mask is slipping, and what lies beneath could change everything you thought you knew.
The assessment of January 17 was set to downplay Russian interference in the 16 election. And then after a meeting with Obama and the top intelligence community officials, or at Obama's direction at least, the intelligence community did a complete 180 and played up Russian interference.
Democrats spent the last 2 decades calling men toxic and shipping their jobs overseas, and now they're asking, where did all the men go? Obama's trying to save the party he destroyed, so he's on a manhunt. But there's one problem. The brothers don't listen to him anymore, so he's trying to transition boys into girls. Barack's got his own rules for men, but these are the rules that made men leave the party in the first place.
Barack Obama once delivered speeches so smooth they made butter seem rough. But these days, he's less of a presidential icon and more like that person at a reunion who keeps reminiscing about their glory days. Only now, the crowd is smaller and the applause is gone. It's as if he peaked at the prom and never left the gym, still trying to do the same dance moves, but the lights are off and the janitor's ready to call it a night.
I was bored. Michelle's outshining him. She's a big Netflix star, best-selling author. Now she's a fruit juice tycoon. And he's just left starved for attention. Just the way Michelle likes it.
We had your wife Michelle on the show, and she had mentioned that for about 10 years of the marriage, she really didn't like you.
Oh, man.
So asking for a friend, how do you get back in good graces? Again, for a friend. You got a pen, so I take notes.
Let me just say this. It sure helps to be out of the White House and to have a little more time.
Megyn Kelly didn't even need a warm-up. She practically rolled her eyes into another dimension the moment Obama's latest Russia collusion saga hit the headlines. The guy's not exactly in hot water, but the bath is definitely warming up. The man who once symbolized hope and change now feels more like vague and evasive. Jesse Waters leaned in like a detective in a crime drama, starting to connect red strings on a corkboard. The look on his face said it all. Not shock, but the resigned disbelief of watching a former president take a nosedive off the credibility cliff.
Let's go back to December of 2016. Barack Obama's president, but Trump has won and is going to be taking over as president in January. And they planned, the intel officials under Barack Obama planned, a lot of this is from Racket News, which everybody should read directly, Matt's group. Intel officials planned a December 9th, 2016 presidential daily brief, which is always from the intel community for the president, letting him know what's happening in the world. They planned a PDB that would say foreign adversaries, quoting here, foreign adversaries did not use cyber attacks on election infrastructure to alter the U.S. presidential.
Let's not pretend the Obama mystique isn't cracking like old glass. He practically trademarked the concept of cool, but lately, he's become the human version of a glitchy Spotify playlist, annoying, repetitive, and always trying to make a comeback no one asked for. He parachuted into Martha's Vineyard like he was still riding Air Force One, but now it's more like he's riding a wave of awkward press moments, strange political endorsements, and carefully rehearsed podcast sound bites that sound like ChatGPT trained on old campaign speeches.
Too. Just to be clear, earlier this week, I actually wrote this down. I rarely write down what I'm going to say, but I just didn't want to forget it because there's so many moving parts. We learned that intelligence community assessment of January 17 was set to downplay Russian interference in the 2016 election. And then after a meeting with Obama and the top intelligence community officials, or at Obama's direction at least, the intelligence community did a complete 180 and played up Russian interference instead of
And Megyn? She didn't hesitate. She went in like a surgeon with caffeine withdrawal. Watching her dissect Obama's post-presidency brand was like watching someone pop a designer balloon with a rusty fork. Elegantly ruthless, she went straight for the hypocrisy buffet. Open 24/7 and always stocked with fresh servings of rules for thee, but not for me. Whether it's his climate change alarmism, while jet-setting to luxury vacations, or preaching about democracy while cozying up to big tech billionaires, the irony was practically spilling out of his collar.
So Michelle didn't like Barack for 10 years? Well, join the club. We didn't like him for 8. So Michelle hated being first lady, always in the shadow of the president. But now she's in charge, and she's only letting Obama out of the house to do one thing: cry about Fox.
What about this country keeps you up at night?
The thing that I'm most worried about is the degree to which we now have a divided conversation, in part because...
Then Jesse, oh Jesse, swooped in like a hawk, spotting a self-righteous former president standing in an open field of contradictions. He didn't even blink, just calmly pulled out a dossier of Obama's greatest hits. Remember when the guy accepted a Nobel Peace Prize while approving drone strikes like it was a video game? Jesse didn't let that one slide. In his version, the Nobel Committee should have handed him a joystick and a Best Multiplayer Killstreak trophy. What's even better is how Obama continues to pretend he's just a regular citizen now, a man of the people, casual, relatable, except he's giving speeches at $100,000 a pop, signing Netflix deals bigger than the GDP of some countries, and throwing birthday parties that make royal weddings look like potlucks. Megyn practically burst out laughing.
She didn't have to say it.
The look on her face screamed, yeah, nothing says humble like a guest list that could crash the NASDAQ. Of course, the 2016 election controversies didn't help. You could almost hear the gears grinding in Obama's PR team. That name alone is like garlic to the credibility vampire that is the modern political elite. Suddenly, everyone's a forgetful amnesiac, but the rest of us still have functioning memory. And Megyn and Jesse aren't exactly known for letting sleeping scandals lie. They're the kind of people who show up to the bonfire with a can of gasoline and a marshmallow stick.
Did you see the post he put out to celebrate her birthday?
Yeah.
Was it her birthday or their anniversary?
He did.
He chose the least attractive photo of her that's ever been released. I mean, this is just wrong. Michelle Obama can look very nice in a photograph. This ain't it. She's got the kerchief on her head. They're about 20 feet apart in this intimate dinner. And he looks great. This is classic, right? Like, he's like, this is a great picture. He's got the 1,000-watt smile. And
the roast didn't stop at the 2016 Treasonous Act, though. That was just the appetizer. They served up a 10-course meal of irony and arrogance. Let's talk about Obama's legacy, the one he keeps polishing like an old trophy. Megyn Kelly brought up how healthcare under his administration became a national migraine. Obamacare, the magical plan that was supposed to fix everything, somehow gave millions of Americans a headache just trying to figure out what bronze, silver, and gold meant. Even now, Obama talks about it like it was a medical revolution. Jesse's version? It was like giving someone a Band-Aid and charging them for surgery. And the border policies? Let's not pretend those cages were built in 2017. They had a blueprint dating back years, and Jesse made sure that memo didn't get lost. Megyn didn't even flinch while reminding the world that under Obama, the media wasn't just in his corner. They were practically acting as his PR firm. Scandal after scandal slid off him like Teflon, while lesser politicians got incinerated for blinking wrong. Fast and Furious, IRS targeting Benghazi, those weren't blips. They were warning sirens. But Obama was too busy slow jamming the news with late-night hosts to answer any questions.
There's more hot air from Barack because he couldn't care less about the environment. This weekend, the former president was in LA grabbing a bite to eat with his daughters, and obviously at a very trendy restaurant. And while the Obamas dined on $20 sushi rolls, their SUV sat idling outside, just spewing pollution into the air. Idling for hours. Check out the video from the Daily Mail showing Barry just casually strolling out of the restaurant, not a care in the world, before jumping into the SUV. What happened? I thought Barry loved the environment. That doesn't look like a guy who cares about his footprint too much. And it certainly doesn't look like the guy who
And then there's his obsession with staying relevant. The Netflix documentaries, the Spotify playlists, the self-referential interviews. It's like he read one article about millennials and decided to become a brand instead of a former president. Jesse said it best by not saying it at all. Just the sight of Obama in aviators giving life advice on a podcast was comedy enough for 3 segments. It's hard to take advice from someone who drops lines about income inequality while wearing tailored suits that cost more than a semester of college. Maybe he thinks it's inspirational. Maybe he thinks he's still the protagonist. But to most people now, it's just tired fan service. And remember that infamous portrait unveiling, the one where he stood next to his own face like a man deeply proud of his reflection? Jesse brought that one back like a plot twist in a sitcom. Because only Obama could turn a government event into a lifestyle brand moment. That wasn't patriotism. It was performance art with a side of ego salad.
Here he is alone at the Trump inauguration, which really was, it was stark. All these former presidents came in with their wives, and then there he was.
It was jarring.
All alone. It was jarring, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, just the spectacle of it all.
Got to spend a minute on the Obamas, because there seems to be some momentum picking up in the rumor mill about their marriage. All right, I'm going to bring you what I know.
Even his speeches now feel like the political version of a rerun. Always elegant, sure, but listen closely, and it's the same warmed-up leftovers. Hope, change, unity. At this point, you could create an Obama speech generator and get a TED Talk-worthy result every time. Megyn suggested they sell them as fortune cookies at overpriced coastal cafes, each one with a carefully ambiguous call to action that sounds deep until you realize it means nothing. Jesse just smiled and reminded the audience that watching Obama navigate current politics is like watching someone try to update their MySpace page in 2025. Outdated, unnecessary, and painful to witness. Oh, and don't forget the foreign policy blunders. Jesse rattled off the names of countries that got the Obama diplomacy special, a mix of vague speeches, red lines made of invisible ink, and drone strikes that had more side effects than a bad pharmaceutical ad. The Nobel Peace Prize Committee is probably still wondering if they can ask for a refund.
The shooting, and I thought, all right, let's see if maybe this is a way America can hear me at this moment. Go back to that day 10 years ago. What I think binds it together, all these different strands, a case upholding healthcare, a case declaring same-sex marriage part of our constitutional protections, of mourning. I think what pulls it all together is that no one person did any of that.
So he's sitting around on a June Thursday thinking about himself. And
people aren't dumb, and neither are Megyn and Jesse. While the mainstream tries to treat the topic like Voldemort in a press release, the whispers keep slipping through, the connections, the flights, the names. No one's lighting a match yet, but the room sure smells like gasoline. In the end, Obama might still have a loyal fan base. He might still sell out theaters with his self-help light monologues and jazz soundtrack podcasts. And while he's busy curating his next think piece or picking another Spotify track to signal his depth, the world keeps remembering the inconvenient truths he hoped would stay buried beneath his eloquence. The presidential pedestal he once stood on is now just a platform for legacy maintenance, with flashbacks to speeches that aged like unrefrigerated milk. The halo is slipping. The script is unraveling. And the myth of flawless leadership is being poked full of holes by the very people who once cheered. Megyn and Jesse didn't just roast the man. They pulled back the curtain on the performance. And what's left standing isn't a monument. It's a monument-themed merchandise rack, waiting for one last spotlight before the lights finally dim on the Obama encore.